We've been going over a lot of heavy stuff and themes in books recently. Some really serious stuff. So I think it's time we just return to a normal horror game. A good one, but it's lighter than the stuff we usually cover, and a lot shorter as well. I've tried looking for horror games to cover pretty hard, and almost every single one that I play falls flat of anything that was interesting enough to cover. This game, however, is interesting enough, and it has an interesting enough story that I felt covering it was pretty cool because the game seems pretty unknown. The game we are covering today is called Anatomy, by a developer called Kitty Horror Show. It is a VHS style horror game which I usually hate, but it has a very interesting premise. It explores some psychology of the idea of the house, like the thing you live in, and how it affects the mind. It is sort of a walking simulator, but it is almost more of a thought experiment as well, which makes it a perfect video for a video essay. But despite its lack of extreme gameplay segments, it's still pretty cool. If you don't know how we do things on this channel, let me explain. First we start with an intro, which we are doing right now, and then we get into the summary, and then finally we get into the analysis. So without going on too much longer, let's get into Anatomy by Kitty Horror Show. When you first start the game, there is no menu or options or anything. You'll be put right into the experience. You'll hear a VHS being put into a VHS player, and on screen it will show a blue screen like a normal tape with the title Anatomy at the top right of the screen, and the date at the bottom, August 18th, 1994. I don't believe this date is important unless it's referencing the earthquake in Argentina that killed 171 people, but that has nothing to do with the game. When you are given control, you are going to be in a house. This house appears to be a normal house. The main floor has a bathroom, a kitchen, a dining room, a closet, a living room with a TV, and a garage. Normal stuff. The top floor has 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and then another master bedroom. And then finally there's a basement with not much in it. It looks to be just storage space. You can explore as much as you want at the beginning, but most of the doors are locked. The only thing of note, however, and it's how to progress, is that there is a cassette player in the kitchen, and next to it is a cassette. Well, the obvious thing to do is to play the tape. And on these tapes are recordings of a psychologist giving a lecture or something. And I will put on screen subtitles of what he's saying because it's hard to make out. He starts with,
"In the psychology of the modern civilized human being, it is difficult to overstate the significance of the house. Since as early as the Neolithic era, humankind has defined itself by its buildings. Buildings for worship, buildings for socializing, buildings for protection, even buildings for the commemoration of the dead. But of all the structures that mankind has invented for itself, there is little doubt that the house is that which it relies upon most completely for its continued survival."
You might think, interesting. But what does that have to do with anything? Well, the first part of the game, you're going to be collecting these tapes around this house, presumably your house, to hear more about the psychology. The second tape is in the dining room, and it says,
"The house is one of the key elements that separates modern humanity from its more primitive antecedents. No other creature goes to such lengths to create lasting, permanent shelter for itself, nor regards such shelters with such reverence and import. Why do human beings of our modern age foster this tremendous sympathy toward their homes? There are many reasons, of course, but perhaps it is due in some small part to seeing them as a reflection of ourselves."
An interesting thought, I suppose. You can tell a lot of people's dispositions by their homes. If their house is messy and cluttered, you might expect that person who owns it to be the same way. And if a house is meticulous and clean, you might once again expect the same thing from the owner. So this game has a lot to do with the idea of the home in general, it would seem. Let's find the next tape, which is on the first floor bathroom, and it says,
"The anatomy of the house is such that this analogy is less superficial than at first it may seem. To carry it further, if we were to dissect a house as we might a human cadaver, we would find ourselves able to isolate and describe its various appendages and their functions in a decidedly anatomical fashion. There is even a fair number of direct comparisons to be drawn between those organs of a house and those of a human body."
And it makes more sense now. It is perhaps implying that the house is an analogy for a living thing, or maybe even a person. Maybe even more than that. The next tape is in the garage.
"For example, let us examine the living room. Often the dominant space of a house's ground level, as well as typically the center of activity in a well-populated home, the living room is very much the heart of the house. While a human heart circulates blood to oxygenate the body's extremities, the living room circulates people, activity, communication. It is the room most likely to be found beating, as active and vivacious as its name would imply. The comparison is only strengthened when we consider also that the living room is most commonly the room to contain the fireplace, making it additionally a locus of actual physical heat.
So it makes sense now that this man is going to strengthen the comparison by equating several rooms to several organs. The living room being the heart makes sense, and in tandem with this, the next tape is in the living room. So we get to it, and he says on it,
It is easy to think of the kitchen and dining room as the stomach or digestive system of a house, though this comparison is tenuous. By contrast, the function and analog of a bathroom should be immediately obvious. The hallways and corridors of a house are its veins, providing circulation coursing throughout its frame. A staircase bears more than a passing resemblance, both physically and symbolically, to a spine. The windows of a house serve much the same purpose as eyes, and anyone who has ever rounded a bend or long drive and come suddenly face to face with a tall, dark manor will tell you that it is difficult to shake the impression that the house, through its lightless windows, is a creature capable of vision and intelligence.
this makes sense still. The kitchen is the place where you consume food and get energy. Powering other parts of the house, it is necessary to eat and consume. The bathroom obviously disposes of waste. The staircase being the spine is interesting as well, as not all houses have staircases. Hell, the one I live in right now is a ranch house and doesn't have one. But the spine gives the human support and balance. The windows being the eyes also make sense. They see the outside world with them. The next tape is on the stairs, however, and it says,
The bedroom is perhaps the room that most eludes direct comparison in this fashion. At a stretch, and allowing for a bit of poetic sympathy, it might be said that the bedroom is not unlike the human mind, or those parts of it which dictate thought and imagination. In the bedroom, dreams are dreamt, passions are ignited, epiphanies are experienced in cold sweat at early hours. In the bedroom is where people invariably spend the majority of their time, though comparatively little of it whilst conscious.
this one makes the most sense to me. What is the bedroom if not the mind in this comparison? What he says all makes sense with dreams, passion, and all of that, but I want to call to attention is to the fact that we spend most of our time there, in our mind. Our bedroom is our innermost room, where we feel our innermost safest. At least with most people it probably does. When throwing a house party, usually the bedroom is off limits. As we may allow some people into our outward bodies and emotions, we always keep our innermost thoughts only for us and maybe a partner or lover. It is where we are safest. The next tape is fittingly one in the bedroom, and it expands on this.
And yet this analogy is an incomplete one, for obviously the mind is an exceedingly complex thing. If the bedroom represents the thinking, dreaming part of the brain, then it is the basement that represents those lower, unconscious parts. The basement is dark. It is buried. It is a place full of cobwebs where memories are stored. A poignant comparison, truly. Often the unnerving uncertainty that comes with considering the deeper aspects of the human psyche is not unlike gazing down at the swimming blackness pooled at the bottom of a basement stairwell. It is a place we spend our childhoods filling with monsters that will lay for years in patient silence. It is a place that, barring some specific errand, we seldom ever want to go.
An interesting thought and a good comparison. How does that compare with the mind, though? Some houses, like once again mine, do not have basements. Memories and monsters have no place to go in those places, other than another part of the mind, which is the bedroom. Or in some cases, those monsters are on the forefront of our minds. Scary thoughts have a way of being in the forefront of our minds when there's not enough storage or outlets to put them in. The next tape is in the basement.
Of course, this comparison, though appropriate, is a very heavy-handed one, and often the basement is little more than a storage space littered with the corpses of spiders and woodlice. While poets and psychoanalysts no doubt dread the thought of a dark basement, in truth, it is the bedroom, the waking mind, that place of dreams, which is actually the most frightening of all.
Pretty much what I just said, but an interesting point is how the basement is a little more than storage space in which children and people like to equate scariness to. although it isn't. The waking mind, the bedroom is the scariest place. Let's see what he has to say about that with the next tape, which is in the master bedroom. Though finally something is different here. Once you walk in and grab the tape in the master bedroom, once you turn around, the door will be gone. But fear not, the tape player will have moved into the bedroom, and once again, you can turn around and play it.
It is here, in the bedroom, that we are at our most vulnerable. Each night we shut our senses to the world for hours at a time, trusting in the house to keep us safe until next we wake. In this state of extreme vulnerability, we will spend something like 20% of our lives. Anything might stand beside us, watch us, keep us company until dawn, and we would never perceive it. We can only pray that the house will not let such things carry on as we sleep. In this way, during these hours, the bedroom seems less like a mind and more like a mouth. For it is here that the house is most likely to betray us. It is here that we place ourselves most at the house's mercy and spend each night hoping that it will not bite down.
When the tape ends, so does the game, and you might think it's over, as I did at first. But before we get into the rest of the game, let's talk about that last point, that the bedroom is like a mouth. I like that, and to build on it, the thought of someone entering our home uninvited makes this comparison that the game is making much scarier, as it is a terrifying thought of how privacy breaking that it is. Thankfully, I've never been a victim of a break-in, as far as I know at least, but it makes it all the more terrifying to think of it that way, and it makes it easier to understand why those who have been victims of break-ins feel the way they do, and why the mind will not let those who are victims of break-ins forget it. It's a piece of you you cannot get back once it happens to you your entire life. How terrifying must it be for the mind to understand that the place where you are supposed to be safest is not safe? As someone who is dreadfully introverted, the thought that this game brings up is more terrifying than most games, as my safe place is my home, and it's effectively my body, my mind. If it were to be made unsafe, I don't know what I would do, as I put all my trust in my home. It is my safe place to hide from the world. If that privacy was broken, it would probably be something I would never fully recover from, I'm sure. Anyway, with that tangent over, let's continue to the next time you relaunch the game. This time, it's different when you launch it. The screen has screen tearing, and there is some visual noise more than usual. However, it seems like it's the same as before at first, other than that. The first tape is still in the kitchen, and the recorder is also in the kitchen. However, as you will notice, the first tape is much more distorted.
In the psychology of the modern civilized human being, it is difficult to overstate the significance of the house.
It is extremely hard to hear. However, it is still the first speech again. But you will notice that there is a sound in the background, and it persists after the tape completes, as if it were actually in the house with you, and not on the tape. Strange. The text on screen will also be glitched after this, but you can still make out that the next tape is in the dining room, and the next tape is still the next speech, but it is even more distorted. It's completely incomprehensible. The next tape's in the bathroom, and this one is once again incomprehensible. After that headache, the text on the screen will be all messed up, but you can make out that all the doors are now unlocked. The house seems a little off now, though. In the bathroom, a mirror is rotated into the wall, so it's clipping into it like a bad Gmod map. It could just be a coincidence, but upstairs in the master bedroom, the door to the closet goes to another door. Huh. Strange. In the upstairs bathroom, the painting is popping in and out of existence. In the kid's bedroom, there's a tape recorder that will be playable, and on it, a child is reading the prayer from Enter Sandman in a very annoying high-pitched voice on the tape recorder. Upstairs in the other bedroom, you can find the next tape, but when you pick it up, some black lines clip through the walls. Putting that tape in that you just got sounds just like electrical humming. The next text says the next one is in the living room. and the tape texture is messed up on this one. Pick it up like normal. It's more of the same though, glitched audio of the first round of tapes. In the master bedroom there is a floating tape. Grab it and you know what to do with it. This time it will continue as normal until the word dream is spoken, where it will glitch into a completely different tape. It's hard to make out what it says, but I will do my best to subtitle it as best as I can.
The bedroom is perhaps the room that most eludes direct comparison in this fashion. At a stretch, and allowing for a bit of poetic sympathy, it might be said that the bedroom is not unlike the human mind, or those parts of it which dictate thought and imagination. In the bedroom,
I dream that there are teeth growing all over me, everywhere on me and in me, like cysts or bone spurs. They're loose, but I can't remove them because I have no hands. I look out through the bedroom window and I see a truck approaching. A young man steps out, approaches, and enters through the front door. His body is covered in swollen ticks the size of quarters. He's walking through the downstairs hallway and laughing. He begins urinating on the wall. He spits on the carpet. He's moving through the first floor, breaking and upsetting things. He goes to the basement and stands at the top of the stairs. I'm angry at him, so I slam the door and he falls down. I can feel his bones snapping. The ticks are bursting, oozing all black blood everywhere. I can feel him being ground up, dissolved and torn, splitting and shredding. I leave the door closed. I close my eyes and try to sleep. The teeth continue growing on me until there's nothing left of me but teeth and gums and sinew.
the basement is dark.
My first thought is that it's a break-in, and the person recording this tape is the homeowner, and they pushed the intruder down the stairs and he dies from the fall. And then the house no longer feels like a home after, like I mentioned. And the house has lost all feeling of safety to this person. It has become a mouth, and the teeth keep closing in. I don't know if that's the correct interpretation of this tape, but it's what I feel happens. Continuing, the tape just flickers back to the psychologist talking about the basement again. Go to the basement and the game will once again glitch around you and close with a startling noise. Reopen the game to a purple screen. You can no longer make out the title or date on the title card. There's more screen tearing and you are dropped into the master bedroom at first. All the paintings are replaced with what looks like medieval paintings of skeletons, or perhaps Renaissance paintings of disease or something, or maybe even Geiger paintings. There is now a red tint to the house, and those red-black lines are all over. In one of the bedrooms, a large flowing organ with blood all over it or something appears. It could be an actual vein or something as well. The bed in one of the bedrooms is now upside down on the ceiling. The front door now looks like a weird fetus or something, a lot like an H.R. Geiger painting. There's a tape in the kitchen with the player again. Playing it is now completely unlistenable, it's so loud and incomprehensible. You cannot tell anything that's being said. The table also glitches in and out of existence. Another tape is on the dining room table, but it's more of the same. There's a tape player in the kid's bedroom, and if you play it, it will loop a screaming that sounds like the Ruth Price 911 call, which, by the way, don't look that up. It's the most scary thing I've ever heard. But that scream will just continue playing forever and ever until the next section. The next tape is in the bedroom. You can grab it and play it, but once again, incomprehensible nonsense. The final tape is next to the TV, which you can now turn on and it will have a red glow appear in the room. It can create some cool looking visuals, but nothing else. After listening to it, the basement door will once again open. And when you get down there, an extremely loud tape will play and all those black lines will light up red. The tape will be the second to final one not played earlier. I will lower the volume so you can hear it, but I will subtitle it once again.
There is an important distinction distinction that must be drawn between the words dissection and vivisection, a distinction that would appear to be lost on you. Your purpose was to listen, and yet at every turn you have pried, you have prodded, and you have interfered. Have you not been paying attention? Did it not occur to you that as an organism existing within a greater organism, your intrusion would be felt? And still you harassed. And now, like the wayward spider who witlessly settles upon a sweeper's tongue, you will be swallowed. Because the truth is this. When a house is both hungry and awake, every room becomes a mouth.
The tape will then reset, and the screen will be red, with text jumbled on it saying, "Can never come back," with a weird noise. You will be placed outside with a loud humming noise. You'll be standing on a sand ring, and in the center of the blood-red water inside, a house hovers above it. Go into the door near the water, and the game will close yet again. Open it for the final time, and you will be trapped in the basement. Nothing to do but wait. But finally, about 30 seconds of waiting, the last tape will play.
What happens to a house when it is left alone? When it becomes worn and aged? When its paint peels and its foundations begin to sink? When it goes for too long unlived in? What does it think of? What does it dream? How does it regard those creatures who built it, brought it into existence only to abandon it when its usefulness no longer satisfies them? It may grow lonesome. It may stare for long hours into the darkness of its own empty halls and see shadows. And its heart may jump as it thinks, here's someone again, I'm not alone. And each time it is wrong, and the hurt starts over. It may haunt itself, inventing ghosts to walk its floors, making friends with its shadow puppets, laughing and whispering to itself at the end of some quiet cul-de-sac. It may grow angry. Its basement may fill with churning acid like an empty stomach, and its gorge may rise as it asks itself through clenched teeth, what did I do wrong? It may grow bitter. It may grow hungry. So hungry and so bitter that its scruples dissolve and its doors unlock themselves. While a house may hunger, it cannot starve. And so, in fever and anger and loneliness, it may simply lie in wait. Doors open. Shades drawn. Always empty. Hungry.
But that's it. That's Anatomy. A really interesting game that really makes you think about the house as a living being. But what does it mean? Well, let's get into that analysis, shall we? I believe the message of this game is mostly to compare the body and mind to the house, and how an intrusion of it is violating. But not only that, in the end, it compares the house that is starved for attention or neglected or abandoned, and how it can ruin a person's mental health. Not only that, in the end, it compares the house to a person, and how both of them can be starved for attention, or neglected or abandoned, and how it can ruin a person's mental health or the outward appearance of a house, making them, quote, damaged and undesirable. Of course, it's not true that someone who is damaged is not deserving of love, but the same can be said for a house. But it makes it look that way to others on the outside, like an abandoned house. And the longer they stay stagnant, the more decayed and bitter and hungry the being becomes. The last speech also compares vivisection to dissection. Vivisections are performed when the subject is still alive, and how learning too much and prying into someone's private life can have a backfire and bite down on a person. Finally, let's talk about the line, "When the house is both hungry and awake, every room becomes a mouth." When someone is starved for care and meaning, they will consume themselves, destroy themselves. So, the message is, go talk to someone. Tell them that you love them. It could make their day. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you watching this short video to tide you over for next week's book review, which is most likely going to be At Dark I Become Loathsome. I cannot wait to show it to you, and I hope you all have a good week. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.